Drug-Induced God. Chapter 10. The God Part of the Brain. The sacred drink of soma used by the Vedic Hindus, the morning glory seeds and mescaline ingested by Native Americans, the sacred mints of the Greek mystery religions, the use of cannabis by the Scythians, the yahe or ayahuasca of the Amazonian jungle peoples, and the iboga of the peoples of equatorial Africa are all examples of psychedelic drugs used to evoke a spiritual experience. Because of the universal nature of this phenomenon, the word entheogens, meaning God generated from within, has been created to describe this class of God-inducing drugs. To the ancient Aztecs, the connection between entheogens and the spiritual realm was so clear that they referred to peyote as the divine messenger and psilocybin as God's flesh. It is so widely recognized that certain drugs can stimulate a spiritual experience that some secular governments, which normally forbid the use of drugs, have legalized certain entheogens when ingested as a religious sacrament. In 1994, the U.S. government enacted the American Indian Religious Freedom Act amendments, providing consistent protection across all 50 states for the traditional ceremonial use of peyote by American Indians. In its report on the 1994 legislation, a U.S. House of Representatives committee reported that peyote is not injurious and that the spiritual and social support provided by the Native American Church, NAC, has been effective in combating the tragic effects of alcoholism among the Native American population. From William James's experiments with nitrous oxide to Aldous Huxley's experiments with lysergic acid, LSD, it is widely noted that certain plants and/or chemicals can induce experiences indistinguishable from certain mystical states. Stanislav Grof, in his work Realms of the Human Unconscious, Observations from LSD Research, cataloged the experiences of individuals who were administered experimental doses of LSD. Based on his studies, Grof found that the symptoms described by those who had taken the drug were nearly identical to those who had undergone a mystical experience. But how is it that a drug could have the ability to rouse such feelings as these in us? How is it possible that chemicals can have the capacity to induce sensations as allegedly sacred and sublime as a spiritual or transcendental experience? What does this say about such drugs? Or, more significantly, what does this say about a spiritual or transcendental experience? In order to answer such questions, we need to look at the drugs themselves. As we know, all drugs, including the psychedelics, or entheogens as they are now called, are always the same in regard to their molecular structure. This is true of any drug. For example, on a molecular level, aspirin is always aspirin. Penicillin is always penicillin. Accordingly, the same rule must also apply to each of the various entheogenic drugs. In other words, the chemical makeup of any entheogenic drug represents a constant. The atomic structure of an LSD molecule is the same whether ingested in Bangkok or Bolivia, at sea level or on top of the Himalayas. The same can be said, more or less, about human physiology. Granted, though there is a certain degree of variance among individuals within our species, underlying this diversity is a distinct physiological uniformity. Since we are dealing with two constants, same drug, same physiology, it's no surprise that entheogenic drugs should have the same particular effect on individuals from such a diverse range of cultures. This still leaves us with the crux of the problem, which is, why do these drugs have this particular effect on us? Why do they have a distinct tendency to elicit what we refer to as being spiritual, religious, mystical, or transcendental experiences? No drug can elicit a response to which we are not physiologically predisposed. Drugs can only enhance or suppress those capacities we already possess. They cannot create new ones. For example, the fact that we possess the capacity to sight, that we possess the physical mechanics to, quote, see, means that it is within the realm of possibility that a drug would be able to either enhance or suppress one's visual capacities. The fact, however, that we do not possess the physical capacity to fly, for instance, means that no drug can ever enhance or suppress our non-existent powers of flight. Again, a drug can only affect us as much as we possess some physiological mechanism that might be receptive to a drug's particular chemistry. The fact, for instance, that Novocaine has the universal effect of desensitizing one to pain means that we must possess pain receptors that are capable of being suppressed. In the same way, the fact that psychedelic drugs have a cross-cultural tendency to stimulate experiences we define as being either spiritual, religious, mystical, or transcendental means we must possess some physiological mechanism whose function is to generate this particular type of conscious experience. If we didn't possess such a physical mechanism, there's no way these drugs could possibly stimulate such experiences in us. In essence, the fact that there exists a certain class of drugs, molecular combinations, that can evoke a spiritual experience supports the notion that spiritual consciousness must be physiological in nature. Herein lies the basis for an ethnobotanical argument against the existence of either a spiritual reality or a soul.